Hello friends, my name is Ram and today we are going to be talking about types of launch vehicles part 3. In the previous video we discussed about SLV and ASLV, which are both experimental types of vehicles. So today we are going to be discussing about developmental types of vehicles. So hope you enjoy the video. Please like and subscribe. So let us start with the first developmental vehicle, Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. Let us start by looking at its vehicle specifications. So as it says here, its height was 44 meters. The diameter of the vehicle is 2.8 meters. It had 4 stages and it had 3 variants or 3 types, that is PSLV-G, PSLV-CA and PSLV-XL. The weight of PSLV-XL before launch was 320 tons. Now let us look at the launch vehicle of the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle. The PSLV or Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle is third generation. That means SLV was first generation, ASLV was second generation, the third generation is PSLV. And it is the first Indian launch vehicle to have liquid stages. The first launch was in September 28, 1993. It was a failure. The second launch in October 1994 was a success. From then on, PSLV was a reliable and low-cost launch vehicle for India. During the time of 1994 to 2017, vehicle has launched more than 40 Indian satellites and more than 200 abroad satellites, and also the PSLV has launched 2 spacecraft. The difference between satellite and spacecraft is that satellites orbit our planet and study about our planet, while spacecraft on the other hand go to other planets. Just drawing a picture over here. Have a look. This is the Earth, let's say. There's launch from here, there's rounds, and then it goes off. The 2 spacecrafts are Chandrayaan-1 in 2008 and Mars Orbiter Spacecraft or MOM Mars Orbiter Mission 2013, which traveled to Moon and Mars respectively. So this is the PSLV. It had 6 strap-on boosters. Let me just write that down. Give me a minute. Strap on boosters. Strap on boosters. And there were 6 of them, 2 on the sides and 1 on the front and back. And the first stage, also known as the PS1, had the maximum thrust. It was a solid type of fuel. And so was the strap-on boosters. Both of them were solid. The PS1 had very high power and could take the rocket to more than half of the way of the atmospheric phase of the rocket. And the solid fuel used by the rocket was HTPB. Let us talk about the second stage, PS2. Let me just block that off. This was liquid. It was a liquid type of fuel and it used an engine known as the Vikas engine. Here I am writing it down, Vikas. In this, Vic and S stand for Vikram Sarabhai. The Vikas engine was very useful and was one of India's very reliable type of liquid engine. Next, we have the third stage known as PS3, which used solid type of fuel. And the fourth stage, also known as the PS4, was a liquid engine. So friends, this was the order: PS4, PS3, PS2, PS1 and strap-on boosters. The PS1 and strap-on boosters gave the highest amounts of thrust. And PS2 gave a high amount of thrust. The PS3 gave a moderate. Or medium, and PS4 gave low. Then you might be wondering, what is here? Well, here there is the payload. The payload was the satellite or the spacecraft you would carry to space. The PSLV had many missions. It had launched IRNSS, and so many more satellites. Next, we have GSLV, also known as Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle. Let us start with the vehicle specifications. The height of the GSLV, or normally known as GSLV Mark II, was almost 50 meters, and it had 3 stages. During liftoff, its mass was 414.75 tons. Its first flight took off in April 18, 2001. The Geosynchronous Satellite Launch Vehicle Mark II, or GSLV Mark II, is the largest launch vehicle, even though its successors have been more powerful, and it is currently in operation, which means it is used. It is fourth generation compared to the third generation PSLV. It's a three-stage vehicle with 4 liquid strap-on boosters, while the PSLV had 6 solid, and it also had an indigenously developed cryogenic upper stage, or CUS, which means gas in liquid form. Let me just write it here. It had gas in liquid form, and it formed the third stage of the GSLV Mark II. From January 2014, the vehicle had 4 consecutive successes. Friends, you can also see here the maximum weight of the payload to GTO, or Geosynchronous Transfer Orbit, by the GSLV is 2500 kgs. Let us move on. So friends, here is a picture of GSLV. It has 4 strap-on boosters compared to the enormous 6 solid for PSLV. And these were liquid. Each had 1 V-cast engine. And there was also the main stage. Then there is the second stage. Oops, sorry. The second stage, known as GS2, and I forgot to mention, my friends, this stage is known as, the first core stage is known as GS1, and for the GSLV Mark III, I believe the first stage is cryogenic. And friends, the first stage is sometimes known as the core stage. The second stage used to take the rocket to outside the atmospheric phase and out into space. GSLV had many missions. Here, sorry friends, I had a problem, so I had to continue recording from here. So friends, we were talking about GSLV. So friends, this part had 4 strap-on motors. 3 you could see here and the 4th one is at the back. These were liquid boosters. Liquid boosters powered by the famous Vikas engine. Each of it had its own engine. And this was compared to 6 of PSLV's engine, which was solid. So this is solid. Of the PSLV. Up, and this part is known as GS1. Next we have GS2. Friends, and I had forgot to mention that GS1 used solid fuels. GS2 used liquid. And GS1 and GS2 surprisingly used engines. Here we go, friends. And both of them used engines, even though GS1 had a solid. Yeah. Yes. Next we have GS3, which might sound very strange to you, but this had gas which had been liquefied. Gas had been turned to liquid. Gas had turned to liquid. Here I have wrote here that gas would have turned to liquid. This is also known as CUS, cryogenic upper stage. And on top of that, finally, we have the payload, the thing which you carry to space. Here we go, the payload. And the payload was most usually INSAT satellites. INSAT and it had carried different satellites like some GSAT. Next we have GSLV Mark III, and GSLV is usually referred to. Next, let us talk about the GSLV Mark III. So GSLV Mark III was an upgrade to the previous GSLV Mark II. The GSLV Mark III, chosen to launch the Chandrayaan-2 spacecraft, an upgrade to Chandrayaan-1, is a three-stage heavy-lift launch vehicle. Means it had three stages, could lift a massive weight into space. So that was why it was known as a three-stage heavy-lift launch vehicle. This vehicle had two solid strap-ons, one core liquid booster, and a cryogenic upper stage. The GSLV Mark III is designed to carry 4 tons of satellite into geosynchronous transfer orbit or 10 tons to low Earth orbit or LEO, twice the capability of the original GSLV Mark II. The strap-ons of GSLV Mark III are located on the side of the core liquid booster, and they are S200. Each carry 205 tons of composite solid propellant or solid fuel. These S200s function for about 140 seconds. Then, after the functioning phase, the two clustered V-cast liquid engines of the L110 liquid core boosters will ignite exactly 114 seconds after liftoff and a few seconds before the S200. The core engines continue to function for about 140 seconds after liftoff. The first developmental flight of GSLV Mark III, also known as GSLV Mark III D1, which stands for Developmental Test 1, successfully placed GSAT-19 into GTO in 2017 from Satish Dhawan Space Center, Shar, Sriharikota. And also, they had also taken care of a new mission known as the CARE mission, also known as Crew Module Atmospheric Re-entry Experiment. That means if somebody was inside the spaceship and it was launched to space, after some time it could again come back and land. The second flight took place in 2018, successfully launched GSAT-29. Then the first mission, which took Chandrayaan-2 into space, the India's second lunar mission, happened in July 28, 2019. And that was the history of our GSLV Mark III. Let us discuss about its specifications. It was 43.43 meters in height, it was 4 meters in diameter, and it had a heat shield which protected the satellite or payload from heat while going through the atmosphere. It was about 5 meters thick. And before liftoff, its mass or weight was 640 tons. That was the launch vehicle plus the satellite. So hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe.